I filmed a vertical miniseries all by myself. And by the end of this video, we'll know if it was worth the work. We're diving into what went wrong.
Sometimes you don't do things 100% safely.
We're diving into what went right.
Oh, hell yeah.
And for all my social media strategy nerds, we're going to talk about how the series actually performed on social media. Let's start with how I messed up.
Hopefully I never made any massive mistakes.
The bane of my existence was, of course, audio. I filmed this at a friend's apartment, which was the perfect location. The depth within a vertical frame was so freaking cool. Plus, the bathroom had multiple mirrors, which allowed me to do a fun two-shot with myself and see both characters' faces. But when I went to set up in the bathroom, I discovered this.
There's a fan.
There was no way to turn the fan off while keeping the lights on. In a real film production, this is no problem, but I personally did not own any other lights to light the bathroom. All I had were color-changing bulbs. Also, I didn't even have a lav mic. So I put my Rode NTG5 on a C-stand like I always do and hope for the best.
Let's see how bad this audio is.
I also made sure to get room tone. Why? I had no idea, but I felt like it was important. I had somehow gotten the idea that I could fix it in post and that room tone would somehow cancel out the other background noise automatically. Spoiler alert. It doesn't work like that. But honestly, this whole audio nightmare turned into me discovering my favorite secret weapon, Adobe Podcast. This isn't a sponsored video, but it's just really that good. A friend told me about Adobe Podcast because the YouTube rabbit hole I went down about fixing audio only made me more confused. With Adobe Podcast, there's only two controls: enhance speech and eliminate background noise. As with any kind of AI editing feature, it's best to use as little as necessary to make it sound as natural as possible. But listen to this. Okay, so I had a moment of weakness and I contacted my ex, but just to get this straight, you're saying my punishment is for my ideal self to haunt me? This tool has absolutely changed my life. The other things that went wrong happened while I was trying to get a shot of my abs.
The one thing I'm super nervous about today is the abs shot. I don't know if it's gonna work because I really only have good abs in certain lighting, and that lighting that I have set up in there is not good abs lighting. So I'm gonna start off today with that shot and see if I can get it to work. I just think the abs thing is really funny for the ideal self, so I want it to work story-wise, but realistically, I got me to work with, and I have the abs that I have, so we'll see.
I tried a few different lighting options.
I don't really have another option. I think we'll be okay. Maybe it's not gonna work.
Okay, this is where understanding principles becomes way more important than understanding equipment. I knew that I needed top-down lighting and that it needed to be a diffuse light source instead of harsh, and that also it needed to be focused instead of spilling everywhere. So, keeping that in mind, I found a solution.
Don't come at me. The way that I'm doing this shot is not good. Okay, I think I figured it out. I hung up just the light. I propped up a diffusion panel on the shower and also on an empty stand, and I used the grid from my big softbox, and I used 4 claw clips to attach it around the diffusion. So I think it's gonna work.
Was it the best solution? Probably not. But did it work for me with what I already had on hand? It certainly did. Now that I'm mostly done embarrassing myself, let's talk about the things I did that made everything go smoothly. Honestly, without all my pre-production planning, this whole thing would have been chaos. The two most important things I did was create a shot list and a shot schedule. I knew exactly what shots I needed so I could fully focus on acting instead of wondering if I was missing something. But listen, the schedule I made was just as important as the shot list. For all the shots where you could see both me and my ideal self, the camera had to stay in the exact same place without moving. If it moved at all while I changed my hair, makeup, and wardrobe, I wouldn't be able to use the shot. Since changing hair and makeup took some time,
I thought I could go to this in 15 minutes. It's okay.
I had to make sure I got everything I needed before I switched characters.
All right. We're flipping the world.
It was also just helpful in general to get a real idea of how long things take. Usually when I'm in manic creative mode, I enter a time vortex. So this was helpful to build trust with myself that I can actually stay on a schedule. Even though I'd never done an overhead shot before, I attempted 2. One being over a bathtub full of water. It is 1:26 a.m. I have one more shot left to do, and it is the shot I have never done before in my life. It's like an overhead shot that I knew that I wanted. I know why I waited until the end to do this, but also I'm like, why did I wait until the end to do this, you know? So here it goes. This shot terrified me because I was worried about my camera falling, but honestly, it was so easy. I just put a ball mount on the end of a C-stand arm. Easy. But I know I am a dum-dum for not having actual sandbags. Bags of random stuff just aren't as reliable. I have essentially no experience editing narrative film, but all things considered, it went way smoother than I thought it would go. I had my detailed shot list, which was my editing Bible. I had already made most of the decisions of which shots were coming when, which made piecing it all together way less intimidating. But I knew the biggest thing that had to work with this series was masking. For those of you who may not be familiar, masking is when you layer one frame on top of another frame and then cut out the part you want to see on top. You see this on social media all the time, as there are automatic filters or settings you can use in mobile editing apps. But here's the thing, in order for it to actually look realistic, you often have to trace the subject frame by frame. At least that's the only way I know how to do it. For the most part, it was easy in the 2-shot because I could just make a square around the ideal self character. It only got difficult if I made a movement that showed up outside of the square. I also used a plate to edit out my C-stand with the mic. All I had to do was get a frame without the C-stand in it, and then take that frame and mask it in. Masking got really complicated in the last episode. It took me hours, and it still wasn't perfect. But I had to choose my battles, and this is one I knew I couldn't win. Now we've come to the moment we've all been waiting for. Was it all worth it? For me personally, I had a blast, and I learned a lot. So obviously, yes. But we're not just here for the vibes. We are here for the data. I posted this series on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Here's how we did across platforms for all 6 episodes. Even though the views were the highest on Instagram, the series actually performed the best on TikTok. With only 8,000 views, the engagement rate was 12%, and I gained 99 followers. I think this is probably because all of the episodes on Instagram were collab posts with my other Instagram account, and not all of those followers were interested in this kind of content. Or they're just haters that are preying on my downfall. In general, the early episodes didn't perform as well as the later episodes, so let's talk about why. First, I realized my intros are too long in the beginning. In the first 2 episodes, I was setting the scene with music when I should have gotten right to the visual hook, which is seeing a different version of myself in the mirror. Second, I made the mistake of putting the title with the series name at the beginning. I realized quickly this was turning people away because it felt like more labor on the viewer's part. They didn't want to jump into a whole series they didn't have context on as they're scrolling their FYP. But when I put the titles at the end instead, they had already been invested in the episode, liked it, and saw they could go binge more. So, back to the big question. Right now, I'm prioritizing engagement rate and followers gained over any other metric. So let's see if this series was worth it. I'd say yes, I did see a positive return from this series. I'm not trying to go viral. I'm trying to build a consistently engaged audience, which means engagement rate and follower count are my North Star metrics. And honestly, mass followings are often accompanied by mass unfollowing. So I'm fine with the slow and steady growth. And now it's time for Did You Notice?, where I talk about something I care about that probably nobody else does. I was very intentional with my use of both warm and cool lighting. I wanted the bathroom to feel cold and clinical as she was dissecting herself in the mirror. The warm light in her room heats up towards the end of the series, and I wanted all the red tones to add a layer of intensity. If you made it this far, thanks for being here. I found this clip as I was editing, and it just really sums up how I feel about creating this series and actually doing it, along with sharing the journey with you. I just wanted to take a second to say that I'm so grateful that I'm actually doing this. I've had this idea in my head for so long, and I'm just glad that I'm doing this. So thank you to past, present, and future Christy for making this happen.
And don't give up on this project. Put it out in the world. Okay, great. Back to filming.
If you have any questions about any of this, drop them in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to follow more of my filmmaking journey.